Miami Heat, 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 Miami Heat. It feels like Miami.
Welcome to the Heat Podcast. I'm your host, Giancarlo Navas, and with me today is that assistant and professional Photoshopper, Christian Hernandez.
What's up? It's good to be back. Just fresh off a fun Knicks game, yelling a lot of bing bong sarcastically. It was a good time.
At the arena, we got to get into what the vibe was like over there. Also, we got to get into your war on the Heat account and math. We'll talk about that later.
I really was hoping not to talk about this, but I guess we'll have to.
I think we have to address the biggest story in Miami Heat the last couple of days. Also, we're going to get into that insane Sixer story. I know that Chris and Kenny brushed up on that, so we'll get to that at the end of the show. Also, Kenny Spence. What up, Kenny?
What's up? I haven't earned the title yet, man. I got a few more shows to do, I guess.
Because it has to come organically. Like Siobhan doesn't have one either. Like Tiff is reality check master, right? That's Tiff's
Which is
title.
Very fitting.
It's who she is, right? So we gotta everyone's gonna get theirs as time comes. I want to we're gonna talk about all-star selections too. We'll get into that in a second. I thought it was pretty. The East was pretty straightforward. The West, I think, is a little more interesting.
But it was pretty straightforward.
The East, I guess we could start there.
I mean, I don't know, man. Sorry if I just I don't think DeMar DeRozan's the best player on his own team. And why is Trae Young there? I don't know.
So DeMar, he's not the best player on his team, and he's at the wrong position anyway.
Well,
what position did he get in? I didn't even.
He plays four, but he's playing as a guard.
He got in as a guard, which is the weird thing. So for the audience that doesn't know, the All-Stars have been picked. In the East, the starters are Trae Young, DeMar DeRozan, Kevin Durant, Giannis Antetokounmpo, and Joel Embiid. So I think the forwards, the three guys in the front court are, deserved. I think those are the three best forwards in the Eastern Conference. That's fine, right? Those three guys. Mm-hmm. DeMar, I think, has absolutely earned a spot. He asked to be a guard, right? Because he wants to be. Cleaning the Glass has him playing all his minutes at forward this season. They don't have him playing at guard. Zach LaVine's another guy who has most of his minutes at small forward this season via Cleaning the Glass, and he's eligible as a guard. So kind of interesting. Trae, I think, what other guard would you have over Trae, Chris, if it's not Trae? I mean, it's like Trae,
I don't know.
Drew Holiday.
I love just being the guy that says that they picked bad and then not actually have to.
It's just kind of like nobody stands out, and his numbers are really good, and I know that they suck, but it's like Holiday, but it's like a lot of games missed.
Why not Bradley Beal? Aren't the Wizards
because he's not
a playoff team?
He's been terrible this year.
Yeah, he has not. His numbers have not been as good as Trae Young, and his team's bad.
Yeah, he's been bad this year.
Yeah, he's been the shooting especially has been bad. So Lonzo, and it's like you're really putting LeVar. I'm LaMelo. Damn, wrong ball person. Lowry. Van Vliet. Garland. So. I think Trae.
The starters are for the fans anyway, so I understand the Trae pick.
I get the DeMar thing. I think he's a forward, and I think that's going to be really annoying when it comes to all NBA stuff because, him as a guard is just ridiculous, and I don't know if he'd get in as a forward. Maybe he might sneak in as a forward, but it's tough. Huh?
Sorry, I'm just catching up on how Bradley Beal's been kind of ass this season.
No, he's been ass. It's part of why they're not playing that well after their hot start.
Yeah.
In the West,
it's fucking Trez, man. Trez is carrying that team. Apparently, it's amazing.
And Kyle Kuzma too somehow.
Yeah,
Kyle Kuzma's having a pretty great year.
Hold on, Cal-AU says bad team, ugly mofo makes me want to poke my eyes out when I watch him play. Who is that in reference to?
Yeah,
that could be anybody. Julius Randle. I once said that Tony Snell leads the league in ugly. I don't think anyone's dethroned.
Yo, poor Tony Snell, man. He just gets wrecked out here on a regular basis. It's like the most common NBA meme is that fucking stat of him playing 28 minutes, no points, no rebound, no assists, no nothing. 0 of 4 from the field or some shit. Just brutal shit.
Real quick, the starters for the West are John Morant, I think, earned. Steph Curry earned. Nikola Jokic and LeBron James. The fifth starter, Andrew Wiggins. Warrior Nation. Exactly.
Andrew Wiggins?
Dub Nation came through. Andrew Wiggins with the late push, the last two returns.
No. Okay, hold on. Time out. Backtrack
All-star starter,
second.
Maple Jordan.
How do they determine this again? It's like part the fan
50%
vote.
50% fan, 20% player, 20% media.
Isn't that only 90%?
No, 50, 25, 25.
Oh, 25, 25. Okay.
I know. Absolutely asinine. Absolutely
asinine.
asinine.
The Bradley Beal thing, has he been a lot better than I realized?
No, I mean, Wiggins has been like kind of good, but
yeah.
Chat says I misspoke. They said I said 20. You heard correctly.
He's shooting 40% from three.
No, yeah, Wiggins has been good.
He's having a good year.
Not all-star starter good in the West.
18-4-2, and he's starting in the West? What the fuck?
Yeah, dude, it's crazy. The fans came out for my guy over here.
Yeah, you know what? Phoenix Suns fans kind of had themselves to blame for that. Because there's no reason he should be in there over Devin Booker.
Well, Devin's a guard, so like Ja and Steph.
Oh, right. Yeah.
So you know that spot, it's tough. That in the West is tough. I mean, you know.
He's got Canada too.
He's got Canada.
He's got Canada.
He's got Canada. Canada didn't come out for Fred though. For Fred VanVleet.
Is Fred actually Canadian?
Huh?
He's African. He's from like Cameroon or something.
Oh, okay, right. So it's like they're in for Andrew because he's like, I mean, he's the best player on the Canadian Olympic team, right?
Mm-hmm, yes.
Wait, no. Yeah. Fred VanVleet's from like Illinois. I thought.
He is. But I'm saying that like just Toronto, like just Canada.
Yeah.
Young Snap 69 says no Heat All-Stars, not at least as a starter. Although I don't think that any of us or anybody thought they were going to get kind of a starter. You know, the missed games from Jimmy. You know, the position.
Yeah, it's nothing worth getting upset about. The only guy who really deserves to go is Jimmy. And
I think Lowry has a legit case. I don't know if he'll get in. I think Lowry has a legit case.
Definitely not to be a starter, but
no, not a starter. Not a starter. And now that Durant's out, you know, they can fit, you know, an extra guy in. So could be Kyle's spot. So
do you think that there's actually an argument for Tyler?
No, you know, and Brian and I went through this. I don't think he has an argument over Kyle because not only the defense, just they look so much better on the court with Kyle. The advanced stats favor Kyle. You know, he's been a better defender. He's just been a better I think Kyle Lowry is the third best player on this Heat team, and I don't think we should really bring that up for question anymore. Yeah. I think Tyler's a really talented scorer. I just don't think he's better than Kyle or other guys on the team. And Kyle for me would be like the last All-Star in the East. Like I don't think Tyler's better than Darius Garland or Fred VanVleet or guys like that. Right, Kenny?
Right. And the thing we have to kind of point out too, and I just realized today, the game is in Cleveland. Yeah. And so they're gonna want a Cavalier in there. And as great as he's been, Garland's just the more fun pick. He's the more like glaringly obvious. We understand what Jared Allen does. In his coach voting, so I'm not sure. But I feel like it'll be Garland over Allen.
I think Allen. I think most NBA people I've talked to and I've asked, they've all said Allen. I kind of lean to Allen after looking at the numbers. I think Garland's more exciting. So I mean that's kind of. I mean Brian and I did our picks, and I mean we were pretty in line. I mean I don't think the East has a ton. You know, Brian shockingly had two Raptors. Brian took Siakam and I didn't even have.
I was trying to jinx you guys.
I'm like I wouldn't even take Pascal, but I understand that like Jason Tatum doesn't really inspire a lot of confidence this year from a lot of people.
He shouldn't be an All-Star this year.
Shmita Smolnik says most NBA people. G's just texting Alex Toledo and Hot Take Harry. Hey man, don't sleep on Nikias and Leif now. come on, man. You know?
Yo, is Schmeathan like secretly in the group chat? Because like
Schmeathan's hilarious, dude. I was saying, I don't know who it was on WAP last night when they said when they made the joke that Jack went from war correspondent to HQ real quick. I think that was Schmeathan. I've been laughing at that shit all. Sometimes like y'all have a comment while we're live, and I think about it like all day because it's so fucking funny. So yeah, so I mean, we don't have to relitigate Miami's kind of all-star chances. I think that Brian and I we covered that pretty thoroughly. But you know, it was kind of fun to talk about the returns and the all-star starters and all that stuff because you know, coaches pick next week, and I believe that next week is the deadline for the coach to coach the all-star team. So you know, Eric Spoelstra could have that locked up in a week or so. So hoping Miami can kind of hold serve it and keep the first place spot that they have. Couple things. Speaking of their first place, you know, their demolition of the New York Knicks.
Yes.
I told you guys before the show I wanted to talk a little bit of like anecdotal stuff about the Heat and how this team feels different in like how the city believes in them. During the finals run, I don't know if y'all, I mean, that was like right in the middle of like our maximum COVID lockdown, right? We were just getting out of it. So, I mean, I would go around, like I'd go for drives and I'd probably like go outside for like a coffee or whatever. But when I wasn't like out, right? And I didn't just feel like people around the city were like into the team making a finals run like they have in years past. And this year, man, I'm walking out of my building. Somebody sees me with a Heat hat. They like want to high five me and they go, bro, we're going to win this year. And it's just like a lot of stuff like that. People are just a lot. I don't know, Christian, you go to all the games. Like, am I really pulling? Is this just like incredibly personal anecdotal stuff? Or like, I think the city is legit behind this team.
Yeah, I mean, obviously at the games, everyone's going to be behind them. You're at the fucking game watching them play. But like anecdotally, like I definitely have noticed more just like, you know, being out in public, whether it be, you know, the supermarket, whatever, walking down the street. And they see him wearing like, you know, a Heat jersey or something like that. Definitely a lot more people seem to be engaged to like make conversation, which I don't think was always the case, even necessarily like, you know, during the bubble run, like you said. Obviously, there were things going on that maybe would explain also why I wasn't having those experiences. But yeah, no. I mean, there's definitely a different level of excitement, and that's honestly great to see because I've always been a little bit skeptical about how engaged people would be without that massive star power that the big three had, because there's not a ton of real, like Tyler's the biggest star if you really want to argue like what a conventional star like marketing wise would be. And it's like, because Jimmy is more of the grinder. He's just like the most elite grinder in the NBA. Like, but it's not like, you know, he's not going to take over a game and hit like a bunch of threes or a bunch of jumpers. I mean, he actually did that in the bubble run. He was on that shit like crazy, but we haven't seen much of that since. So it's like, it's hard to kind of look at him that way. And then you see Tyler coming into his own, like, you know, so how often is he creating offense right now with no help, no screens, no nothing? He's just taking somebody off the dribble and making something happen. And he's doing a pretty decent job of it. Like, and that's the part where it's like, I get it in the advanced stats and a lot of that stuff. It's not really reflecting the growth that Tyler's shown, but he's a much more complete offensive player than he was his first couple seasons.
Shout out to D305 Nando for the Prime sub. They also gave a message with their sub. Fuck the Knicks. I agree. Fuck your life.
But to back up Christian's point about Tyler being the biggest star, I haven't been to an actual game in a long time, but Christian knows because he goes pretty often. There's a feeling in the arena when Tyler comes into the game, and every time he touches the ball,
when he's going up to take a shot, like, you hear the like, and it's a whole stadium getting hype, and that doesn't happen for anybody else.
And so it's something you can't really quantify if you haven't been to a game and seen Tyler. I do recommend anybody who hasn't gone, go. It's just an amazing experience. This city is totally behind them.
Would you say that it's similar to like Ray Allen taking a shot, Chris? Or not quite there?
I'd say to a greater extent. There's some. It's Who would be the comparison on older Heat teams? At least taking like a 3 and causing that reaction. Like I would compare that reaction to the reaction everybody had for 4 years when Dwayne or LeBron threw up a lob, and everybody knew that the other one was on the other side of the rim.
It's not hyperbole.
Like it was that kind of thing.
Chris, that's kind
of I don't think it's hyperbole. I went to his first preseason game. I think it was against the Spurs, and it was already like that.
You know, I've told this preseason. Kenny, I don't know if you've ever heard me tell this story, but I've told this a bunch, and like how the Heat in this city are really weird, and it's like why I always think it's a basketball town more than anything else. My sister's high school graduation, it was the day of Game 7 of Heat Pacers. First thing said in the graduation was not, thank you, students, thank you, parents. It was, we're going to finish early so we can all watch the game today. And that place was the loudest at that fucking graduation. And the fucking abuelas behind me that didn't speak English were hyped because everybody was in on that fucking team, right? Those games were an event for this city, right? When the Heat made the bubble final, I remember I just saw a bus driving around with "Let's go Heat, congrats on the final." And I was like, that's kind of sad that that's the most I've seen, right? So I'm wondering how this team is going to fare now that, you know, we're a little bit more back into society in spite of the Omicron kind of outbreak or whatever. I mean, we're more back to normal than we were in 2020, and this team feels special. They put together stretches of basketball where they just utterly make the team opposite from them look like they don't belong on the same floor. And they do this regularly. That Laker game, for 3.5 quarters, the Lakers look like they just did not belong on the same floor with them. They did that to the Suns. They did that to the Jazz. They did that to the Mavericks. They've done it to the Bucks twice. And Christian, it's like they keep doing this. And they obviously, like, they're not whole, but it's like the evidence is overwhelming. They're fucking good, man.
Oh, absolutely. And the thing that I feel like has impressed me the most is that it really feels like they've just been getting better as the season's gone on. And so much of that has been with their biggest stars in and out of the lineup. Like having I took a buddy last night who, you know, he admitted to me, like, while we were on the way to the stadium or to the arena, that he hadn't watched anything this season. He was pretty out of the loop, and he's pretty good about, you know, staying with the team and staying up to date. So I was like, okay, cool, let's play a fun game. I'm going to list out 5 guys, and I just let me know if you've ever even heard of them. All right. And I mean, obviously you guys can probably guess who the 5 were, but 4 out of the 5, he had no fucking idea. And obviously, like, he literally busted out laughing when I said Omer Yurtseven because he thought I was fucking with him. But no. And it's like, that's just, so just think about that from a casual
Which one did he know?
Like, it's like they're making wine with water, you know? Like, and it's been super awesome to see. And it only seems like they're getting better now that they're getting, you know, Bam's back. You know, Jimmy and Bam have been relatively healthy, even though it's kind of bummed to see that Jimmy has a bad toe now or whatever.
Fucking toe.
But, you know,
it's
exciting, dude. I'm just sipping
that wine. They're creeping into top 10 in half-court offense, which I think is probably the most interesting development for the second half of the season. I think a lot of the trends that we saw early, like, hey, how real are these Dedmon, Tyler bench unit lineups? That seems legit. Those lineups are still crushing people. Dedmon's fantastic. Tyler and him have a great synergy together. We have the Jimmy off the ball as a roller with Kyle. You know, Kyle obviously out for a bit, but that for most of the season when they have played, Jimmy is the best roll man in the NBA. I think he's the 99th percentile last time I looked in terms of pick and roll men with any sort of volume, right? So a lot of their trends that we looked at early, you know, have held. Now the half-court offense is creeping back up. If they can have a top 10 half-court offense, they have the 3rd-ranked offense right now. We know what they're going to look like when they're healthy defensively because they just haven't been healthy on defense. Yeah. If they can have a 10th or 11th ranked offense like in the half-court and then have the elite defense that we think they can have, I am very, very hard-pressed to pick against them in a playoff series. Anybody in the NBA. And that may sound crazy. That made me sound like a homer. They are just so uniquely equipped to deal with the elite teams in the NBA because of their personnel, their switching, and their coaching that If they can get that, the only thing that you can point to is that half court offense. I have questions. If they can answer that question from now until the first round of the playoffs, I think we're talking title, baby.
Yeah, and I've said before the season even started, even if I weren't a Heat fan, just looking at this team, this is a championship caliber team. Just the way they built, we don't have to talk about the defense. We know that already. But with the offense, watching the game yesterday made me realize how deadly it can be. Just because the Knicks, who aren't as good defensively they were last year, obviously, but they had to decide on those Bam and Duncan DHOs. All right, am I going to just follow Bam and stop him from being this dominant roller he is, or do I just go out and blitz Duncan? They chose Bam, and we saw what happened. And so if teams have to deal with that, and especially Bam doesn't get enough credit for being as aggressive to score as he's been this year also. And so that unlocks what wasn't there with those DHOs last year, because teams could just blitz Duncan and then Bam's just looking for something else instead of taking those shots. So now those teams really have to stretch themselves thin and figure out how that works. And now you also have Kyle coming back. You have PJ in the corner instead of Iguodala. And so it's just at a point where teams just don't know what to do against them.
Kenny, so the Lakers were blitzing Duncan on the handoffs, and guess who was springing free every time? PJ, who was kind of triggering them. The Lakers were like, I mean, he had so much space. He was like, what the fuck?
Yeah, that's the thing.
Duncan has gotten so good at that pass. He did not have that early, and that was really the first counter weapon that he built in, and it's been pretty foolproof unless they switch.
Yeah,
it's been terrific.
It's deadly. It's deadly. He's been making passes even outside of that to where, like, okay, he really worked on his playmaking. He's in the film room, whatever the case is. He's really worked on this. And so now he has that pass, and he has better targets. No disrespect to Andre Iguodala and those guys, but he has better targets, spreading the floor. Obviously, Bam scoring more. And so this is a deadly team, and I expect them to climb in half-court offense even more once Kyle's back.
So the other thing I want to talk about real quick, and Christian, this is something that you and I have worried and wondered about a while, and we're kind of just checking back in. How are Duncan and Tyler lineups doing? -2 per 100 possessions, 112 offensive rating, 114 defensive rating. Duncan without Tyler, +7. Tyler without Duncan, +8. That's still something. And now that Duncan is starting, they are separated again. And Max acts as a buffer between them. This hasn't been an Achilles heel for them yet, and I think Max really helps that, but that hasn't corrected itself. And that's one of the few interesting things I think we can take on the negative side, that just hasn't been solved yet. Their offense is okay. The defense is
If you're going to have those two guys out there, the offense has got to be humming. Like, there's just no way around it.
You got to go in for a kill shot.
And I think that part of what's probably making the stats look ugly is that, you had at points. Were those stats just this season?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, early in the season, Tyler was on fire. Duncan couldn't hit anything. There was a little stretch where Tyler kind of cooled off for a little while, and Duncan was kind of refining his form. And it's only recently that we've seen both guys really kind of playing at their max potential. So I'm sure the numbers lately have probably been a lot better than they were earlier in the season. And that's really what I would be watching is, like, because what Duncan was doing in the beginning of the season is not him. And he's proving it now, especially over the last, few weeks. So it's hard to take a lot of that stuff. You got to take it with a grain of salt. A lot of those offensive numbers that with Jimmy and Bam both on the court that look really bad, and the general lineup numbers that look really bad, were when you had Kyle and Duncan shooting under 30% from three-pointers while on the court with them. That's a significant factor, especially with guys like Jimmy and Bam that are really primarily, first instinct facilitators. So
Jimmy and Bam, however, Christian, have really their two-man unit has crept back up to positive. They're almost +2. They're +1.5 net rating. Offense still stinky. 105 offensive rating, 104 D rating. So, they're creeping back up. I think they've looked better as of late. Jimmy without Bam +7, Bam without Jimmy +8. They haven't played a ton with Kyle, the three of them together. They've only played 257 minutes, and they're +4, right? So that's the thing that I'm going to be looking at going forward. I think that, like you said, those things are kink workoutable, right? They have a couple kind of shooting woes or whatever that they've corrected. Duncan especially really opens the floor for them. And I see you nodding, Ketty, but they have such a deep team. And I thought it was funny I don't know if you guys watched the ESPN broadcast. Jeff Van Gundy said, the Nets aren't as deep as this Heat team. And I remember when the Nets signed Patty Mills, re-signed Blake Griffin, signed LaMarcus Aldridge, have Nick Claxton and Bembry and Bruce Brown, right? They're like, oh man, this is a Joe Harris. Oh man, this is a really, really deep team. They can win without, one of their stars. What happened to that energy?
Every time, G.
Every time.
And sorry, I just want to bring up something real quick, just because I found it. Kind of like how I was saying that it just kind of felt that lately things had been working better with Tyler and Duncan. I looked at the lineup numbers just for this month, which for the Heat is only 7 games that they've both played together. But the Heat have a 103 defensive rating in their 125 minutes together. Like, obviously, still a relatively small sample, but that's significant progress from where have they been season-wide, G? It was like 115, I think is what you said?
It was.
So that's a big improvement. And obviously, having better defenders back in the lineup is going to help boost those lineups, defensively and make it harder for teams to kind of expose those two.
114.
114. So that's 11 points per 100 possessions less that they're giving up on the defensive end. The offense hasn't even been that crazy, only 109, but they're +6 to 103 defensive rating.
And to me, Christian, that's a red flag, because if your offense is consistently not good with those two guys, and I don't know what that is, but it's been thematic throughout their tenure together, and it's just like I said.
And to reinforce your point, G, almost all these other lineup groups are well above that number. So it's like it seems to be a specific issue with them.
So that's not a bad problem to have, because you separate them, and that's fine. Yeah. Because when you close games, you only want one of them, not both of them, right? Because you're going to go with PJ, your big three, and then one of the shooters, right? And then that's it, or Oladipo, or whoever is playing well, or Max if he's kind of having a night or whatever. So I think that's probably their biggest logistical issue that has kind of been trending for years, and it's kind of a non-issue when it counts, because it's an easy stagger and separate.
Right, but I think the issue with it, like you said, just don't play them together and it's completely fine. But I think it's just play style. I think Tyler, we know, is a bad defender. That's fine. Duncan is a pretty good defender, but he's not a guy you want to put next to a bad defender. It's just not going to work out that way. And on offense, Duncan, he does need guys to feed him the ball and find him when he's open. And Tyler's at his best creating his own shot. He's a fine playmaker, but I think their play styles just don't really match. It's not a talent thing. I don't want anybody to think it's a talent thing. It's just that their play styles just don't necessarily mesh well, which is fine. Just separate them.
Yeah, I mean, I think, and like I said, it was just something I wanted to bring up, because they do so many things well, as we talked about. Like the bench units have been great. The switching has worked out tremendous. They even mixed in some drop last night with Bam. I thought that was kind of an interesting wrinkle that they're kind of bringing, and I think that's good that Spo mixes up defensive coverages. What a masterclass on Randall! I mean, nowhere to hide for that dude, flailing like a fucking fish. When trying, I mean, that was, to me, that's the funniest part of the night is Randall kind of going up for a layup and flailing around, not getting a call, turning the ball over. And I got to be honest, guys, I don't even think Miami played that well yesterday. A lot of sloppy turnovers, a lot of like poor passing, like not very crisp, and that they absolutely demolished them.
But it's crazy. It's the defense. It's an elite defense. And that's why
really well.
Yeah. And that's the reason why, like a traditional big, quote unquote, in a major role wouldn't necessarily work. Obviously, Dedmon's great, but you want this team as modern as possible defensively. Just switchable guys who can play 3 through 5, probably. And that way you have a Bam who can just step out on Julius Randle and shut him down. You have a PJ who can guard anybody. It's better off that way. You just have as many bodies throw at whoever is possible. This Heat defense is tough to scheme against because of that. This is elite defense.
It's incredible. They got nothing out of Caleb last night, which is probably the most quiet game he's had in a long, long time. And like I said, Gabe was not great either. Shot the ball well, didn't do much of other things, and it didn't matter. They just Jimmy and Bam were great, and Duncan was great, and then that was good. And it's a wrap. And
that's what you love about this team. Everybody doesn't necessarily have to play well because they have so many capable guys who can step up. And so we can afford a game where Caleb Martin looks like what we expected him to look like going into the season. And so,
because as long as your best players don't play bad, and even if they play bad, we've seen these other dudes step up constantly.
Yeah. And so that's what you love about this team, man. Anybody's capable on any given night. 1 through 15. That's very rare in this league. I don't care what team you're talking about, what year, what era. That's very rare.
They legitimately have 13 guys that you trust playing and it not be a disaster.
Yeah.
Right.
And so
maybe 12. I don't know how we feel about KZ. He had a nice showing last time, but
they did figure something out with KZ. Just put him at center next to PJ. He'll be fine.
And then the dude broke his wrist or some shit. I mean, God, get well, KZ. That sucks. Keith is another guy that, we could talk about the lineup integration of guys at a different date, but I'm feeling good. I legitimately feel like I'm not scared of any team in the East. I think, Brooklyn, the Miami is so uniquely equipped to defend Brooklyn. They can switch the favorite Brooklyn actions. They have enough size to bother the Nets. Bam plays bigger than any of their guys. And when the Nets go at center, you play into how Miami wants to play because our 5 can guard their 5, and that's just not an advantage. That usually that creates a disadvantage for other teams. And in Miami's case, it makes the matchup more straightforward because you don't have to finagle your defense to get either Jimmy or somebody or Bam onto KD. That just happens, and Jimmy can be on one of the guards, kind of provide some size and some help. The Milwaukee, I don't know. I guess they're the team that I would give the best chance to beat Miami, but Christian, is Milwaukee scaring you?
Not without Brook Lopez. It is a monumental, and without PJ Tucker, thank you, Kenny. But really, there's a massive difference when you're talking about attacking the rim, and you've got to worry about Brook Lopez versus Bobby Portis. With all due respect to Bobby,
with all due respect to the man who never blinks. And that's another thing, because when the Bucks downsize to Giannis at the 5. You again just simplify Miami, okay, you're going to go really small. We don't really have to change our lineup. And, we can now guard your 5 pretty straight up and you lose the advantages. And now you're just really thin and you don't rebound as well as we do because we're one of the best rebounding teams in the league and we can switch all that stuff, blah, blah, blah. And then you have, the Bulls, which you laughing at the Bulls? Because I am too.
No, friggin' Iman just saw that Wiggins is an all-star starter, and she just writes, "Is it crack?"
She's hilarious, man. Shout out to Dishes and Dimes, homies. Oh my God, I don't know, guys. I just none of these teams scare me. I'm not gonna say that I would pick Miami to come out of the East if I had to put money on it. I don't know, but I'm not gonna lie, Chris. I'm getting closer and closer to saying that they should be favorites to come out of the East, and I know that they're never gonna be a public favorite because stars are stars. But honestly, if you'd ask me, who do you think is the best team in the East? I would say I think the Heat are the best team in the East.
Yeah, that's why I bet on them to win the championship over a month ago. And Gianni, the great thing about the market the United States in general, kind of not giving a fuck about Miami and never talking about them and never giving them any spotlight, is that the betting odds are so much more favorable than they should be. So,
Have you put a little entertainment on it?
Yeah, just $20 worth. But holy shit, I'm going to have a nice vacation if that $20 hits.
I mean, listen.
Because those odds were a little bit unfavorable to the Heat earlier in the season.
They're not. They may have only one All-Star. They may not have Coach of the Year. And yet, here they are. First place, clobbering teams. They play the Clippers on Friday. Tomorrow, then they have the Raptors on the second night of a back-to-back. You want to go into, I think going into All-Star break with the 1 seed is kind of a nice short-term goal for this team. I'm sure that they don't care about the seeding, but get guys healthy. Jimmy's questionable for tomorrow. I think with some sort of toe thing. Lowry is still out for personal reasons. That's a Caleb night. That's a Max night. Let's see if they have a little bit more magic in them. This has been such an incredible year, and I don't know. I just today wasn't super analytical. It was more like, shit, man, they're really good. They're really good. Kenny, it's just fucking good.
No, but it is that simple. It is that simple, man.
And fuck the Knicks.
Yeah.
I see people on Twitter being miserable today, making trades, thinking about Duncan's salary hit in 3 years. Guys,
just call Harry out.
It's not just Harry, though. It's like
it's not. I wish it was just Harry.
I wish it was just Hot Take Harry. It's Hot Take Harry. Harry responded to Cooper Moorhead tweeting out stats. Harry goes, "I'm not taking the bait." I was like, "What bait?"
And then he definitely took the bait.
I was like, "It's Cooper Moorhead, for God's sakes." The fans just guys, they're winning a lot of games. They're crushing good teams. They're first fucking place. Why are you worried about a cap hit 3 years down the line?
And either way it goes, this is just a wrong organization to constantly do that with. We're talking about Andy Ellisberg and Pat Riley. We can sit back and be comfortable and just enjoy the team. They know what they're doing. They've shown it for 25 years plus.
I'm not telling fans to not be interested in that stuff because I think it's good to be an informed fan, but I think it just goes to a point where you go overboard, with that. Now you just you're obsessed with being right and the smartest, most nuanced guy in the room. It's bro, they got rid of Hassan Whiteside. The day that they needed to sign Jimmy Butler. They could get rid of anybody.
Yeah,
and
that's what I'm saying. It's fine to be interested in this stuff. Yeah, it's fine to be interested in that stuff, which is great. It's interesting to me sometimes. I am curious about salaries and what they can do or whatever the case is. But right now, just stop invading my space when I say something positive about Duncan or Tyler and just being trade him over to whatever, make him do it. Like I've said on whichever show, I do every show here, but just doing bad Chef Trudy impressions, making bad jokes about where the player would be traded to or whatever. Just, you can do your stuff over there. Just let us have fun, though.
It's just a strange space to be in that, you guys are supposed to be fans, right? And it's not to lecture people or anything. It's just something that I thought weird today that I opened Twitter this morning and it's everybody trading Duncan. I'm like, what are we doing? What are we doing?
I will say the only thing that will take away that's good is that, I'm glad that they're learning the idea of selling high, but still.
They've never sold. When have they sold low?
Well, they don't ever sell, right?
They don't ever sell. People are like, oh yeah, the Heat. Chris, do you remember Coachy Ramos told us that signing Chris Bosh was bad because it was a bad asset to have. It's a negative asset to re-sign Chris Bosh because you were not going to win a title and you should have pivoted for draft picks and space. And it's this fetishization of cap space and assets. And you become, look at the Sixers. They're I
was about to say, I think a lot of that mentality has kind of been disproven in recent years, most loudly by the Sixers, because the justification was always wait and see. And guess what, motherfuckers? We saw. He didn't do shit.
And they're going to argue that
Sixers?
Ben torpedoed it.
No.
That they're going to say that. But you've created a culture of losing in your organization for half a decade. What do you think's going to happen?
And there are examples. There is the Sixers. There is the Celtics, who are in hell right now. There is the OKC Thunder. There are teams who operate that way, and they don't ever actually become anything.
Well, markets like in hillbilly hick cities, they got to. Right? Like, what are you going to do if you're Indiana or if you're Oklahoma City? Nobody wants to live there. Yeah. Why would anybody choose to live there unless you offer a bag or you're hostage by a draft contract? You know what I mean? So it's those teams have, but Philadelphia has choices, right? And it's just, I do think it's funny that they've become the 5 seed that they never wanted to become. I'll never forget it. They are what they did. They are what Hinkie never wanted them to be. And again, they're going to blame Ben and they're going to say all this stuff, but you created that in your building. And then you refuse to move him because you're trying to hardball while your guy's having an MVP season.
So let me just say, I absolutely love dancing on the Sixers' grave. Like, regardless of the fact my hate for them stemmed from defending Hassan Whiteside, which yikes, but I just love it still.
In retrospect, I really got to say, we made the most of some really dark times. We were rooting for Dion Waiters and Hassan Whiteside.
Hey, but that
as a pod or as a team? As a pod or as a team?
As a team, as a community, dude, if Spo doesn't win Coach of the Year this year, I'm going to fly to the league office myself. And I'm just going to sit at the front. And I'm going to wait.
I'll go with you.
For whoever is responsible for this.
You think Tiff and Brass
there will be answers.
Just pick it outside of them.
They've owed him that award for so many years.
He's not going to win. They're going to give it to the Memphis guy, or they're going to give it to
Billy. So they're going to give it to Monty Williams because they owe him from last season, but Spo needs one at some point.
They talked about giving Kerr another one, and I'm like, what?
Oh, no. I respect Steve Kerr. It is difficult to coach those types of teams, and they are typically just so in sync. It's incredible, but Spo has to get one at some point. I think this year is the year. This is an absolute masterclass by him this season.
Does Pat have a Coach of the Year? Pat has
with the Lakers, I think.
Way back Coach of the Year.
Yeah.
Jesus, good for you, Pat. They showed Pat last night on the broadcast. There is nobody with an aura like Pat.
Oh yeah.
I think in our sport it's what is it? Pat, MJ, and Phil Jackson, and I think Phil Jackson has a lot of bit of sheen.
Yeah, Phil kind of messed his up with his time with the Knicks. It's not really the same with him.
It like Pat, Chris. I don't know if you've had events with Pat at season ticket events, but when I covered my first Pat Riley event, and I'm standing in between Ira Winderman and Anthony Chang, and Pat looks at you. It's I don't know, bro. That there's like an aura. The air gets thick. That guy feels powerful. It's weird.
Because I feel like it's really easy to argue at this point that Pat Riley has a better basketball track record than Phil Jackson, right?
I think so, but
longevity and consistency.
No.
You know what it is, Chris?
When you bring up that point, I think so. Because so at one point, that 72 Lakers team was arguably the best team in NBA history. They're the ones who I think still have the winning streak record. Pat was a player on that team. They won a championship that year. He became the coach later on from the sideline. They ended up winning the championship after Magic got the original coach fired. That's another story. They had their dynasty. He went over to the Knicks. He made them relevant. We don't want to talk about this too much. He came to Miami. He did what he did. So we're talking about 40 years now, exactly, of Pat just being at the top of his game every single year.
Dude, Arrow in the chat writes, no one can win with the Knicks. Pat Riley won with the Knicks, and then they've never won since. Think about that shit. Think about it. Culture.
I didn't even think of that, Chris. Like, yeah, I think it's pretty unassailable at this point. Maybe I just think Phil, being so front and center with the MJ teams, right?
Yeah.
And then, the Kobe Shaq legacies and stuff like that. Because Pat, as a coach, hasn't been in the public eye as recently. Pat's more the godfather, kind of figure, which I really feel it's like a Pat and Andy. It's like Andy's like his co-star behind the scenes, like I think Pat knows that none of this is possible without Andy. That guy.
I do think too, and not to take away from Phil. Phil was an absolute genius as a coach, but he didn't have to make something of nothing as often as Pat did. So Pat, yeah, he did have Ewing. Magic obviously one of the greatest players of all time. We don't talk about that. But Phil did walk right into Michael and Scottie, then Kobe and Shaq. And so Pat had years where he had to kind of just make shit work, including 06 with the guys who were quote-unquote over the hill, along with a young D-Wade. So I would honestly, even unbiased, I think I would go ahead. I would go with Pat.
I think I don't know. I think it's certainly at this point in time it's a lot closer than I think anybody would have thought, and just the winning, the fact that the Heat have made the finals in 3 different decades is insane. And they have a chance to win a title in 3 consecutive decades. If they make the finals this year, that's 7 of the last 20. It's fucking crazy.
And
that's almost half the time. They've been so fucking successful. The Dolphins have not won a playoff game since Dwayne Wade was drafted. It was 2003.
Was the last time you won a playoff game with Fiedler? Was it like early 2000s or something?
Yes, I think
it was definitely early 2000s.
2001, I think, is the last time the Dolphins won a playoff game. 2001 or 2002? Because I know that they haven't won
December 2000.
Since Dwayne Wade has been drafted, the Heat have gone on to make the finals 6 times, win 3 titles, get to 8 conference finals. The only time they made the conference finals and didn't get out was in 2004 when Wade broke his ribs. It's just, and it's not to shit on the Dolphins. And this is not for me to shit on the Dolphins. This is to talk about the sustained excellence of this franchise.
Yeah.
That since Pat has walked in that door, they have been a good competitive basketball team. And since Wade walked through that door, they have been truly a flagship franchise for the best basketball league in the world.
Yep. The Heat are the potpourri to the Dolphins pooping.